Well, welcome to this week's episode of the Sound Money Sound Principles podcast. Zach, I'm a little discombobulated. The system didn't do what it normally does. I don't even. We started with things a little different today.
Dude, where's my walk-up music? There's
Hey, if you
nothing.
have walk-up music, I got no idea. Hey, you probably just watch walk-up music. Eli, the producer, is probably going to put it in, but it didn't do it for us like normal. So we're a little. I don't know. It's been one of those days. It's been one of those days for us in the business world. But welcome to this week's episode of the Sound Money Sound Principles podcast. We're excited to be here. It's been a unique week. We're excited about this week's messages around gold and silver and some of the things going on there. We learned some really good fundamentals this week about the gold market, and then we're really excited to talk about this week's business principle. It's something that you and I believe firmly in, and for the listeners will be of great value as we get to that today. And so I want to start out today, Zach, with, April. We finally get the April CPI came out. It was much higher than anticipated. I know Donald Trump said it wasn't going to be, right? But he's at the end of the day, Donald Trump's like a good salesman. I can understand. We kind of like being salesmen ourselves a little bit, but he thought the CPI number, the inflation number, was going to be much lower. It ended up coming in at 3.8%. That's the highest in 3 years. We know why. It's tied to energy sector gold. It's tied to oil. But we had a whole bunch of people that just don't understand gold and silver panic about, hey, gold went down $150 during the week. But you and I and the smart money see this as we really learned a lot this week about the real value of gold. And we can't wait to talk about it today, Zach, because we've been saying this to ourselves. We've been saying this. We've had an internal discussion about this. We've been talking about how above $4,300 and is really a new floor for gold. And I want to talk about that for a minute today, because you and I are super excited about what we learned this week about the floor of gold. So I've got the infograph up. By the way, if our listeners don't know, this is all available. We put this out at sound.money under the news section each week. We compile all this information in the marketplace, and we put it out in a full report. We put it out in an audio at Substack, and we also put out a simple infograph that you can look at. And this is the infograph for the week. It's the macroeconomics of gold and what the 3.8% CPI really taught us about gold this week, Zach. So let's jump in. What did you learn? What did you take away, and what are the foundational things that you learned this week about gold?
Well, I think, what's crazy is, like you say, there was this panic, because it dropped a little bit. But gold had to go back down and test this floor. If you understand anything about fundamentals and anything about trading and pricing and all that kind of stuff, it had to go test it, especially with a CPI rating this high. Because what does that mean? Interest rates are going to be a little bit higher. Inflation is still cooking, right? Which means now that the Fed could raise the interest rates. Well, where's that money going to go? It's going to go places where people get dividends and they get, high yield treasury bonds and all that kind of stuff. So it should cause a little blip in it. But I think the overall thing for me that I picked up from this last week and all this stuff with inflation is, again, the underlying current here is the economy's not doing well. And it's funny because all of these big investors and these hedge funds and all these people, they use the word price in, right? When you listen to these analytics and stuff, well, they priced in this news, or they priced in this event, or they priced in high oil. And so that's why they're making their predictions, or why they're selling where they're selling, all this kind of stuff. The bottom line is they can price in whatever they want to price in the short term, but they're looking at micro stuff and not macro stuff when they're doing all this. And what I really learned in this process, Josh, is nobody is looking ahead very far down the road.
No.
Even these big hedge funds and even these big traders, they're just looking at weeks at a time. And they're not looking way down the road where they should be looking, and that's not what they're pricing in. So they make these short-term decisions based off this stuff, but the long-term synopsis is still the same.
When you have in the same day, we've been talking about this. Warsh got confirmed on the same day, that the CPI number came out at 3.8%. So inflation is up, right? And he's hawkish. In the past, he's always said, hey, in order to protect the US dollar, we have to raise interest rates. This has been his MO his whole career. So in the same day when he gets confirmed, inflation numbers come out higher than they've record numbers in the last 3 years. It only drove gold down $150 to 45.40, and it found a floor, right? That tells me, right, there is real value there, that we are seeing short-term, to your point, short-term movements with no long-term vision. I'd go into a discussion for a minute, Zach. This is what was shocking to me this week. So that's the United States, right? And United States is the vehicle that drives the gold market and always has for the last 250 years. God bless America, right? So America. But so that's been the case. But I was more shocked this week at what came out of India. We don't have it on the infograph, but we put it out in the report because I just think this is God, this is like scary to me. Unless you're a stacker. If you're a stacker, this what I'm about to share with you, you're going to be super excited about. If you're not a stacker and you've just been listening and you haven't been buying gold and silver, oh my goodness, you got to get in the market. Okay, so India, this last week, did this radical thing. If you don't know this, India is the second largest holder of gold on the earth as a country, as a people. They store their value in gold. Physically, yes, physical holders of gold, and they actually store it in the housewives of India. There's more gold held by the housewives of India in jewelry than any other country in the world. Okay, so this is a group, a community, a culture who understands not just the intrinsic value, but the life-saving monetary power of gold. Okay, they use it as a hedge against inflation in their country. Well, here's what India did, Zach, this week that nobody's taught. I have not seen this on Fox News or CNN or MSNBC. Not one headline, but our team dug this out and found this, right? This last week, India raised their gold import duties from 6% to 15%. Think about this for a minute, Zach. 150% increase, okay, of a tax on gold in India. Now, in history, this has only happened a handful of times when a country has 150 times increased their tax on gold. And it's only been done for one reason, because they're scared about the devaluation of their currency. So they just made it, Zach, I want you to speak to this. They just made it so the common person in India now has to pay 15% tax instead of 6% tax to get the gold into the country. And they're a net consumer of gold, meaning they can't produce enough in their country, so they have to import gold. What signal is this really sending in the world about fiat currency and the fiat currency in India today, where they're telling their people, hey, we're going to 150% increase the tax on gold in our country? What are they saying?
Yeah. What they're saying is, we want you to use the currency because it's debasing and it's devaluing. What they're saying in that move, what they're saying is, we don't want our citizens of India to be storing their wealth in precious metals or gold anymore, because we need them to use our fiat currency because it is debasing. That's what it says. They're trying to disincentivize their people to buy and store gold. So anytime the government is trying to disincentivize you to do something, you should really pay attention to that and be like, I should maybe think about doing the opposite, because they're telling on themselves, right? They're pulling the curtain open and showing you all the ugly stuff when they're making that statement, if you're paying attention.
Yeah, I'm blown away, Zach. They're telling their people, our currency's in the garbage, and you keep storing your hard-earned values, your store of value in gold, and it's hurting the currency, and we need you to stop, which means you should race and store your store of value in gold.
Yeah.
And here's what I'll say, right? We just mentioned, right, the great US of A, America, right? We just haven't added the tax. But we are so much more we're so in trouble compared to India when it comes to military spending currently, to national debt, right? To the interest alone now is more than our defense budget. at the current interest rate, and we know that Warsh, he has to increase interest rates. We've been wanting a reduction in the interest rate, and folks, it's now not going to come with
Yeah,
inflation.
which
3.8 is impossible.
yeah, which by the way, Josh, I was going to mention earlier when you were talking about this, only $150 reduction and hit this floor.
Yeah,
I was going to mention that Warsh wants to increase the rates, and just by him saying that he wants to increase the rates, it should have pushed gold way through that floor. Like it should have just blown through it, right? Because again, all these big operations, when they have cash sitting around, what that says to them is interest rates are going up. I'm moving out of gold and precious metals, and I'm moving all my money into high yield bonds because interest rates are going up. I'm going to make money off my money, right? So I'm getting out of gold, which would drive the gold prices down, and nobody did it. And Bank of America, JP Morgan, none of those guys, even after that revelation from him saying we need to raise interest rates, none of them changed their end of the year projections for where they think the price of gold is going. That's insane.
It is insane. Sometimes, Zach, do you feel like that we were actually living in a bubble most of our lives until a decade ago, like you and I? Like these things were going on. My uncle, I have an uncle named Kenny. He would preach to me like crazy pre-2008. Preach to me like crazy. Buy gold, buy silver, buy silver, buy silver, buy gold. And I didn't get it, right? It seemed like voodoo magic to me, right? Like what drives this price? And here you and I are a decade, well, more than that now, but a decade into owning two of the biggest precious metals companies, right? And we fully understand it now, right? We know all the economic pressures. We study it on a daily, we know it, right? And I just want our listeners to know that when India does that, and when a new hawkish Fed chair comes in and is going to have to move interest rates up, not down, and gold holds its value, oh man, you should run to buy. You should sprint to buy. The whole world is telling you that the fiat currencies of the world are in big, big trouble. And if you want to be protected, the safe haven asset of gold and silver is the answer. And so,
Yeah.
boy, yeah, I wish we had this big megaphone, right? But maybe idiots wouldn't listen anyway. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, we didn't, right?
We didn't.
You didn't listen to your uncle. I didn't listen to my grandpa. It was like gold. That's what my grandpa does. He mines gold. Like that's just an old guy's thing, and he's paranoid. That's a Great Depression thing, and we're never going to have another Great Depression, right? We're a more civilized society, and technology is advanced, and so why would I own that? But the one thing that actually, if when you compare India and the United States of America, do you know the one thing that actually makes me the most nervous about that comparison?
Go.
Is the fiat currency of both countries are equally as unstable.
Yes.
But only one country over the years has their citizens actually been doing the things that will protect them when it all blows up. Because in America, we are a consumer country. We just buy stuff. We consume, right? And we throw it away. We buy recreation stuff.
Go look in your garage. You just got crap, right?
It's everywhere. And none of it has any value.
Yeah.
So we're spending money in places that is not going to help us down the road. Like we just have this insatiable desire as American people to just buy stuff. And it's the media and the commercials and the marketing. They've done a great job of teaching us how to do that. But the problem is you could look around. Like I promise the average person listening on this call today, you could probably go to your house and you could probably spend 10 minutes. And I'll bet you could walk around and look, and you could probably come up with about $5,000 worth of stuff that you'll be like, I don't even use that anymore. I don't remember why I bought it. I used that once, or I bought this on Temu. So stinking cheap, it broke. I mean, by the way, they had a big fire, Temu. I don't know if you heard.
I didn't hear.
Yeah, it burnt down all 49 cents of their inventory. It cost them 49 cents. But if you looked around, like seriously, Josh, if the average American looked around, they would probably find $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 worth of stuff sitting around that they just bought that they're not using, that they could have purchased in precious metals. And the people of India, for years have been buying jewelry. I mean, they're dripping with it. I mean, they wear it. And so, if something happens to their currency, they will be much more protected as families than the average American family. Because the average American family is going to go, well, I wonder how much I can get up for this bicycle off of Facebook. Well, guess what? When everybody else is as broke as you are, nobody's going to buy the bike. Like it's not going to be worth $50.
Yeah, and I know it happens with age. I know Zack looks like a kid on the podcast, but he's really not.
Yeah, I'm 15.
I know exactly.
Graduate
15
high school tomorrow.
plus 40. But and maybe it's a thing of getting older, right? Getting close. I'm getting close to the century, the 50 mark, and man, perspective's different. And I look back at a year ago, we were touting and telling on this show every day that, hey, now's the time to buy gold and silver. Now's the time. And boy, fast forward just 12 months, right? From 12 months from today, you've more than doubled your value, which is remarkable, right? And I think about that. And to your point, the citizens of India, who a year ago were doing that, the gold they're wearing around their necks doubled in value this year. And as their currency, just like ours, like when the CPI is 3.8%, that means that inflation is up 4%, right? This
everywhere else,
everywhere, in every aspect of your life. So it's exponential.
Yeah. And we're the best economy in the world, Josh.
Yeah. That's why it's so important today, right? That's why we do all this, Zach, this education and this podcast. It's why we have our company's SoundMoney wallet. Like this is because if a person is disciplined about going out, buying, I don't care, $200 a month, find the $200, buy $200 fractionally of gold or silver every single month. And guess what? In these little dips, when these things happen, like this happened, and it drops by $150, you just got the greatest buying opportunity because it's not staying there. Like we've found the floor. Pretty amazing, right? And so I just love what we're doing in the world, Zach. Like sometimes you get up in the morning and you say, we're really doing some good. This business is doing good. And I love the good we're doing with that because for every person that listens and every person that gets involved with what we do, they are going to win one day. And that's a fact. They're going to win for their family.
Well, so yeah, and we have the benefit of hindsight.
Yeah.
Right. Like a lot of people aren't in this market and they don't understand it. And they think about gold and silver kind of the way that you and I did 10 years ago. But now with the advantage of hindsight and seeing all the stories of all the people who over the last 10 years have purchased and then watching what they've done with it and how it's like blessed their lives, it's immeasurable. Like there's just a ton of people that it's completely changed the trajectory of their future lives because they've done it.
Yeah. And we're on a mission, right? We've helped a few 100,000 people at the SoundMoney wallet now, over 100,000 people who we've helped in their households. But guess what? We set out to help a few million. And in the next decade, we've got to turn that into several million people, Zach, because there's so much need. So if you're a listener and you use the SoundMoney wallet, hey, take advantage of your affiliate link. It's free. Share it with somebody else. Like it's mission for us. This is mission driven. We can help more households than ever before by sharing. How is it hedge against a fiat currency? I hope, Zach, that our government doesn't get stupid. And as we continue to see inflation rise and our dollar become worth less and less, I hope our politicians don't become stupid. I don't have a lot of faith, but I hope they don't do dumb things like India and try and, tax it for 15% in order to drive money away from it. But hey,
hey, we're having elections right now. I just went and voted today. I should have my I vote sticker on.
Where's your pin?
I swear, Josh, that once they're elected, as soon as they put their hand on whatever they put their hand on, whether it's the Bible or Quran or whatever they let them do now,
get rid of that in America.
DC comic book. I mean, it's like doesn't mean anything anymore. I swear, as soon as they put their hand on them, they just give them a stupid pill and they swallow it. It's like,
and there's some that way. We're like, some of our listeners are, we have wonderful listeners who are members of the out-of-state legislature, Utah. Hey, some of our listeners are running the state of Utah, running the state of Florida.
Florida.
Yeah, but a few didn't get stupid, but a vast. They took the stupid pill. I don't know, but This is a great time. You know what? I love what we're doing there. And if you're wise and you're listening, guess what? You're winning by taking advantage of these opportunities. So stay tuned next week as we dive a little more into it. We love studying it, we love learning it, we love sharing it. And so, Zach, I want to switch gears now for the rest of the podcast today. I kind of want to switch gears, right? There's, God, gold's resilience comes from its real lasting value, right? But we're going to talk for a minute about a business principle that's very similar. Um, you and I believe this wholeheartedly, that in business, you can't ever focus on any short term hype. If you do, and you have a business that's just focused on short term hype or over hyped or oversold, it's never going to have lasting legs, right? It's never going to be real. But there's this principle that you and I firmly believe in business. And when you start a business or you're involved in a business, that the very first thing that you need to do is you need to actually go out and create value. That value creation first is one of the most fundamental principles. And this is opposite because most people think of things and they go, I'm going to start a business so that I can earn money. Have you ever, Zach, been a part of a business that started out with, I'm going to make a lot of money doing this, or I'm going to make X dollars on a person or on a sale, that's ever won? And contrast to that, what businesses have actually won?
Yeah, anything that I've ever started that was like me centric, that was like, hey, this is a great idea. I'm going to do this because I'm going to make a crap ton of money. Usually those fizzle out pretty fast and they haven't lasted. Maybe we made a little bit of money up front, but it didn't last very long. But most all of the businesses that we've created or been a part of that have been successful, most of those actually started not because we set out to start that business or actually wanted to be in that business. It was simply because there was a problem that needed to be solved. And either it had to do something to do with the current business we were running and nobody could solve our problems. We're like, well, we'll solve our own problem. And that turned into a business. Or it was just looking around going, hey, this is a big problem. How has nobody fixed this problem yet? And then finding a solution to it. Those are the business, in my opinion, are the ones that are most successful, is when there's enough people that it's a big enough problem for them and you can find a solution, all those people will pay you to solve the problem. Then you make money.
Yeah, and when it's focused on value first, right? So you find a problem, solve the problem, deliver the value, right? Earn the trust, usually through the marketplace, and then the profits will follow, right? Like that's the path. It seems, help others win and you'll win. It's this idea. It doesn't happen any other way. Like in my experience, every time I've ever been like, hey, there's an opportunity here for me to make some money, and I focus on that, those never get off the ground right. But when we've actually started things that we've went, the world needs this, we actually don't know how we're going to make money. We actually don't know how we're going to make money, or if there's any money to make. We just know there's this problem. And we solve the problem and we deliver the value. Magically, the world finds a way to pay you. And it's opposite of this is what's crazy. It's opposite of what most people think when they're running a business. Most people think, I got to start with the end in mind of where the profit and the money is going to come from. It's just not how it works. Like, and I don't, we've been blessed enough to be around some of the best entrepreneurs in the world. And I've just seen this formula, and you have too, over and over and over, where when you focus on solving the problem, you do it. So Zach, you and I have a business partner. We've had him on the show before, Anthony Webb. We've had him on the show lots of times. He kind of epitomizes this to me. Lots of times when we start a business, he'll say, I'm going to get in the trenches and I'm going to be the customer service agent for the first 6 months. I'm going to be the shipping agent. I'm going to do all those meaningless tasks, right? And it's because he says, we got to understand how we're going to deliver value. He says, first, before we can worry about if we can make money. All those things will come later. And so we've seen that a lot. What are some of your thoughts around that as an idea? This helping others and delivering service first versus focusing on money.
Yeah, to me that is like the epitome of capitalism. Capitalism works on this principle. Like socialism and communism work on the opposite principle. Like there's really two trains of thoughts. There's the transactional train of thought, which is if I do something, then I need to get something of equal or greater value and I need to get it immediately. and that's why I'm doing it. And then there's this thought process of value, which is like, I don't even know what I should get out of this, or do I think I should get something out of this? It's just that I know this needs to be solved and I know this needs to be done. So I'm just going to do it. And I've said this before on some of our other shows or podcasts, but I truly believe in this principle that a hand that is open to give is also a hand that is open to receive. And to me, that's how this principle works. Is an entrepreneur usually always has to give first. But when you think about being employed, usually an 8 to 5, it's very transactional, right? The employee wants to take first. It's, if I give you an hour, then I demand $20 for that hour. Well, you've only got so many hours in a day that you can actually make that trade. So you're very limited to what you can actually make. And the reason is because you're very limited to the actual value that you can add to the world. But when you start thinking in value creation and not this whole transactional thing, all of a sudden it's the thought process is how much value can I add to the world, and then the world will figure out what that's worth and I get paid for it. But now all of a sudden I'm not this in this transactional thing of, if I do this, then I better get this, right? If I am walking down the street with my wife and I see somebody's garbage sitting out there, if I just take the garbage in with the thought of like, I can create this value and I can do this thing without any recourse, then magically somehow something of equal or greater value shows up in your life for doing that. But if it's like, I take this in and then a day later you write up an invoice for your neighbor and you're like, hey, I was walking down the street and I saw your garbage out there, so I took it to your door, but now you owe me $10. Like, that's where it stops. You're probably not getting the $10, but even if you did, that's all you get, right? So the value creation process, I think, is critical. If you really want to make money, then what you really have to think about is not what you're going to get out of it. What you have to think about is, how much value can I create in the world to pay me for it?
We all know people who are transactional in nature, who want to do things and balance a ledger in life. And those people are usually no fun to be around. That's just a fact, right? And they usually struggle. But people who serve and who help others find great value. I was also, Zach, this last week, I was thinking about this, that the creation of value has very little to do with money. It often has to do with personal satisfaction, right? Some of our friends who have been ultra successful in business are the least happy. Those who don't add value to the world and don't give back to the world, but have all of the money on it. And we're talking, make $1 million a week, make $1 million a day, friends. Some of them who haven't figured out how to create real value for people have no personal satisfaction. I was talking with a friend of mine who's a physical therapist, and is a non-traditional physical therapist, does things opposite of what the rest of the space does, and really works miracles with people. But I asked him the question, I said, well, at some point in your journey, you had to depart from the traditional Western medicine view of physical therapy, because you do it differently and it really makes a difference. And you had to get to this point where your path diverted, right? And I said, I've spent, the listeners may or may not know, Zach, I've spent better part of decades in physical therapy in my life. And so I intimately know how the industry works. The Western medicine view of it is typically like, race as many people in and out, do an exercise, put a heating pad on, try and see 20 patients an hour so we can build 20 different insurances, right? And that's a money-making thing. He shared with me, he said, you should listen to this. And I listened to it, and it was stating that the biggest problem facing the medical space today for physical therapists and PAs is, after 7 years, they're having an 80% quit. 80% of the people are quitting after 7 years in the professions. And the real thing that I shared with him after listening to it was, it's because they're adding no value. And because of that, there's no personal satisfaction, because what they've done is built businesses around just generating money. And so they're not helping a patient and they're not succeeding with the patient, and they're just running them through a little wheel, right? A little rat race wheel. And at the end of the day, there's nothing personally satisfying about it. So they have to leave the profession because they're getting divorces, they're going through life challenges, they're going through life crises. There's more to this life than money. We have to add value to others in order for us to feel valuable. And so there's a lot to be
Yeah,
said for that.
it's what we were born to do. Like we were all born to create, and if we're not, and creating is adding value, right? It's abundance, it's giving, it's like, so when you're not doing what you were created to do, then it is really easy to start feeling lost and like you have no meaning or purpose in life because you've lost it, right? I have a brother that's in the exact same boat. He's an optometrist, and for years he worked at a firm. I won't name the firm. Everybody on here will know it. But for years he worked at a firm, and it literally was like they had a quota that every 15 minutes they had to have somebody through that door. And if they didn't, then there was, I mean, it was not good, right? And so he got to the point where every day he felt like he was just going to work and clocking in and clocking out, and there was no purpose in him even showing up because he couldn't actually figure out really what was wrong. He couldn't really help them with the problems that they needed. He couldn't have meaningful conversations with them or build relationships. It was just simply transactional. Get in, I got to get you out of here in 15 minutes because I got the next patient showing up, and if I don't get you through, then all the bosses are going to be ticked because they want their revenue. So he left, and he bought into a practice that is very much different than that now. And they spend as much time as they want with their clients and their patients, and he actually gets to help people solve their problems and help them fix what's going on, right? And now he loves where he's at, and he feels tremendous value.
And my guess is it wouldn't matter. He could be potentially making less money and be more happy. That's my point. Like, you don't,
Yeah.
what'll
But
happen over time is he'll make more
well,
money.
I was just gonna say, but here's the crazy thing, Josh. He spends less time, he spends more time with less people, but makes more money
Hmm.
because he's adding more value. I don't know how it works all the time, right? But they're able to either charge more, or I don't know what it is, or I don't know all the intimate details of his business. All I know is he works less hours, sees less patients, and makes more money. But he's adding more value to the people that he sees, right?
Yeah.
And he's getting compensated for that.
I'm also going to take this. We don't usually go here, right, Zach? But I'm just going to go here for a minute for all of our listeners who have a significant other, a spouse, a girlfriend or boyfriend, right? That this really, really matters in a marriage or in a relationship. Um, Make sure you're adding value to your significant other, right? Just find ways to add value for them, right? Do meaningful acts of service for them. Give them genuine compliments. Add value to their life, right? Don't be someone who's transactional, right? We all know friends, couples who have a transactional relationship where it's like, well, you're going hunting, elk hunting today. That means I'm going to the mall and I'm buying a new pair of shoes, right? Or hey, my wife went and she went with her girlfriends for a girls' night. That means, by darn, I'm going with my friends. I'm going golfing the night. And my point is, like, don't make anything in your life transactional. Add value and add respect and love, and the world will increase those relationships too. So it's a principle that has impact in all aspects of our life. So,
Yeah,
Zach,
100%. And they've actually done some studies on this, Josh. I was just recently reading about cognitive decline
yeah,
and longevity.
Mhm.
And it's interesting because, it used to be sort of the school of thought that your brain would start to cognitively decline at a certain age, and then it was kind of irreparable. Like there was no way to get it back. But now what they're finding is even after the age of 65, they're finding that individuals they're actually more cognitively aware and sharper than they were when they were in their 40s because of certain different behavior changes. You all know what the one of the biggest was, and I think this ties with value.
You and I must have either listened to the same podcast or read the same report, because I ran across this a week ago. I know the answer. I do know the answer. You
Yeah.
ready?
Yeah.
Gratitude. If
Gratitude.
people are grateful and they show gratitude for the things that they have in their life, that they can actually get rid of anxiety, and they can actually increase, or they can decrease cognitive decline over the age of 45.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing, right? Just that one simple little thing. And the second biggest indicator factor was negativity and
Yeah,
complaining. So
something
people
else.
who stopped complaining and people who showed abundance of gratitude, not just like thought about not was just like driving down the road and like, man,
Express gratitude.
yeah,
Express.
they express it, so like driving down the road going like, I had this third grade teacher that was awesome and he really helped me out. That's super cool. That brings a feeling, but it was the people who actually did something, like wrote a letter and sent it to that person or made the phone call and actually expressed the gratitude. That's where it made the biggest difference. So not complaining about things, looking at things negative in your life, and then showing gratitude. And really, to me, adding value is like a big thank you. What it really is saying there's all these different people out here and there's all this stuff going on. I'm grateful to be a part of this, and I just want to add my contribution to it as a thank you to what everybody else is doing, right? This is my contribution of thanks.
So I love that you shared that, because I hate algorithms. I really do. I hate algorithms. So we're going to talk first just a second about like things like Elon Musk and X, right? They got algorithms that bring you content. So I watched a clip of a podcast that referenced that Harvard study, and because I watched that, the algorithm, it brought me something else, and it brought me a 1992 interview with Warren Buffett. And in the interview, Warren Buffett, he was asked the question, what makes the biggest difference for success for a business owner or someone who is doing what you're doing and at the time taking over corporate companies and trying to turn them around? His answer was really remarkable. He said, what makes the biggest difference is whenever there's a challenge or a problem in life, always express and share 3 things that you're grateful for about it. And then he gave 20 minutes of examples. I'll share a couple. These are simple things like you spill a drink. He said you spill your coffee in the morning while you're driving to work all over your shirt. He said you can be angry or upset or mad about it, but if you do that, you'll never be successful. He said you'll never be successful. He said, but if you would say things like, I'm so grateful that I've been blessed that I have 2 shirts, that I can afford 2 shirts. I'm so grateful that I could spill coffee on myself and I can still go to work today and earn money with a stain on my shirt. He said things like, you rear end someone by your own fault at a stoplight, and you can be upset, angry, mad, but if you stop for a minute and say, am I not grateful that I didn't get hurt and they didn't get hurt this morning? I'm so grateful that I actually can pay my insurance premium so that they can pay to repair that car. He said, find things to be grateful for and you'll find success. So this principle, right? The wisest people in the world have believed this their whole life. And I don't know, there might have been the greatest man that ever lived on earth, shared it 2,000 years ago. I don't know, with a whole bunch of people over in Jerusalem. I don't know. Maybe you find it in an ancient book. Zack, I'm going to give you the last
examples.
Lots of examples. Lots of examples. I'm going to give you the last word today on either of the topics.
Yeah. So both of us, I was just thinking, both of us have people in our lives that you think, I need this thing and I don't have this thing. I'm going to go borrow this thing. And then the next thought that comes is, it's actually going to be cheaper in the long run for me to go buy this thing than it is to borrow this thing, because the IOUs are expensive.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
This transactional relationship thing. Like, I really just think if the listeners, and by the way, I know people have to make money, and I know people run businesses. It's like, you just can't give everything away for free. That's not what we're saying, right? You can sell stuff, and money's the having money and all that stuff is good. It's great. You got to do it. But I think the listeners really ought to focus this week. I think it'd be really interesting to hear some feedback from some folks that just pictured their life of like abundance. And when somebody asked for something, they just gave it without the thought of, okay, I'm logging that so that next time I need something, I can go to this person and say, remember how I did this for you, or you borrowed this or whatever. I need to return I need a returned favor, right? Like no return favors this week.
No return.
It would be really interesting to hear in some of the comments throughout the week what experiences people have as they just openly add value to the world with no expectation of anything coming back. I think it would completely change people's perspectives. And then on the note of gold and silver, man, if you're in the game, just stay in the game, right? Don't look at the short-term myopic views of all these analysts and what's going on. Just look at the long term. Look at the long term. Stay in the game. If you're not in the game, my invitation this week is get in the game. Go to sound.money, get an account. It's free. Do whatever you can, right? If it's $1, if it's $5, just start and just start accumulating something so that if something does happen, you've at least got some diversification and you've at least protected yourself over there. Do that, and I think you're going to win for your family.
I fully agree with both of those statements. I've been lucky enough to be raised by a dad who was completely non-transactional, who just, we didn't have much, but if we had it, you're welcome to come use it. And so I've been lucky to have that in my life. And it's a principle that I absolutely know is true. If you are willing to share with others, you'll be blessed. And man, what an awesome time to have the opportunity to buy gold and silver. Just the fundamentals are there. And there's never been a better time to be able to protect yourself. Don't be caught with your pants down, Zach, with like the people in India who all of a sudden now got to pay a 15% tax because their government is trying to force you out of gold and into their fiat crappy paper currency. Let's learn from them. Let's make sure that we are better and that we take advantage of things like Sound.money today to participate. And so we just really appreciate all the listeners and appreciate the opportunity to jump on here each week and share a few thoughts with you. And until next time, we can't wait to see you at the Sound Money, Sound Principles podcast. You guys have a great week. See you, Zach.
All right. See you guys. Love you.